Hi, this is Isabel. Good evening. I hope you're doing well today. It's December, so it's going to be a busy month for everybody, whether you're working or not. End of the year is always quite busy. Lots of deadlines and lots of things to do. So for this end of the year, I wanted to cover a topic that's actually quite in demand, I would say. The Swiss resume. This is something that you need. So just to let you know, in terms of my method that I have in my tutorials, for me, the resume is really something that you do once you know what you're looking for. So I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. So I'm just letting you come to see this video online on Facebook. So again, today what I want to cover is really for me the first step of my method, which is the branding. This comes before the resume. I'll give you some tips on resume writing and cover letter, and let you ask me some questions. If you have questions, for example, about how to build your cover letter a little bit more in detail or something like this, feel free to pop in and ask questions. This is really the goal of this exercise tonight. So in my method, basically, that I do in my website, I basically have 3 steps in a job search. So the first one is really about building or branding yourself, I call it. So it's really about what do you do to make yourself the type of person that an employee will want to hire. So that's number 1. And then I move on. Okay, now that you know what you're looking for, you write your resume. So what is that about? How to brand myself? What do you mean? So the first thing is really to understand your orientation. So it's something that I talk about quite a lot in my different webinars or interventions. It's really about branding yourself and understanding your orientation. So this is not very easy, you're going to tell me, when you're an expat. Maybe you've had many jobs, or maybe you just graduated college, or maybe you're right now at a stage where you're in between jobs and you're not quite sure if you want to pursue the same thing you used to do. So this is why branding for me is really important. And it's something that you can't really do once you have your resume written. Your resume will only be as good as your profile is, meaning if I don't know what I'm looking for and I'm putting a resume out there with different keywords, it's not going to help me because I don't know what I'm looking for. So the first thing is really to define, and this is what I do quite in depth in my first stage of the method, is really to go quite in depth with my career. What do I want? What are my skills? What are my strengths? I have found new websites as well that really help through this process of skills assessment and finding what you're good at and how that links up to the market. So for example, if I'm somebody that's really good with analytical skills, or if I'm very good with leadership, I have the opportunity to work on my profile so that I understand what type of work I could be doing. And this is really difficult for most people. They tend to know what they're good at. Maybe they think they're very good with communication, or they're very good writing skills, or IT, or what have you. But then they just stay there. They think, okay, I know those things, but then how that translates into the market, what kind of work I should be applying for. And it's quite big, actually, the market. You have so many things even within a field. So for example, under IT, you have so many different opportunities, from security, from web development, from mobile development, from all kinds of things. How do you fit in? Or for example, if you're in communications, this is maybe an example that a lot of people can relate to, because I know quite a lot of people looking in communications or marketing. This is quite vast. If you're saying I'm a marketing specialist, well, what type of marketing? Are you talking about marketing the way it used to be done, in terms of maybe events marketing, when you're doing special events? Are you talking about digital? And within digital marketing, are you good with, maintaining events, Facebook or LinkedIn, or doing this kinds of marketing? Or are you more someone that will analyze Google Analytics? Maybe I'm talking foreign language for you right now, but it's just to give you examples of how vast one field could be. And this is why you need to be very, very, very particular. So when you're applying for work, you have to work through these motions first before you even think about writing a resume. So you need to be entirely clear about what type of marketing do you want to do, what type of communications, what type of IT, and this is what's going to help you find your future employer. I like to talk about Simon Sinek because he's one of my favorite leaders out there. And I really recommend that you watch his videos. I've watched some of his videos. The way he talks about branding is that basically you're someone that has a sign out there, and you will find people that carry the same sign. And this is how you find each other. So I look at basically looking for a job the same way. So you would be, for example, a marketing specialist in one field, and you would have an employer somewhere that's actually looking for these kinds of skills and pushing that message out, and at some point the two will find each other. But you can't find each other if you're not putting this message out. So this is why putting your message out is very important. This is what I do. These are my skills. This is what I'm good at. And then you will have an employer that's looking for that same skill set somewhere that will be contacting you. So again, go through this motion of building your brand, building your profile. Who are you? What type of work are you looking for? And who are you as a person? This is just as important. So even before you start writing your resume, you need to define your skills, and you also need to define your values, because that's going to be part of this work of putting your sign out there. So you're not just a marketing person that's doing very good reference for websites. You're also someone who enjoys, and you see a lot of profiles right now, they use a little bit more personal detail. So they would say, I have 2 kids and I enjoy doing, running during my free time, or I do triathlon or whatever. So make your profile a little bit more personal so that people again can identify with you as a person and not just as a robot. So you're someone who has skills, but you're also someone who's a human. You have interests, and these interests could really talk or be very clear to somebody. So for example, again, I'm giving you examples so that you understand a little bit the technique behind it. For example, you're someone who's very good with, you're a marketing specialist, you're very good with website referencing, you're very good with social media management, and at the same time, you're someone who's also very active in the community. You do a lot of community work, whether that's helping associations or doing all those kinds of things. And this is something you do on your free time, obviously. Well, if you only put on your resume, for example, on your profile, because again, I tend to looking for a job a little bit broader. If you're only putting out there that you're, just this marketing person doing website referencing and community management, that's something probably a lot of people can have out there. However, if you actually show that you're also someone very active in the community, then you're already becoming a little bit different. You're not only just a marketing person, you're someone maybe who's done a lot of work in the community, or you're participating regularly in events. That's also another way to find a job. But see how all of a sudden your brand is actually becoming a little bit different. So now I'm using another leader that I actually like. His name is Seth Godin. I talked about him a lot. He also says that basically you will find your tribe. So again, similar as Simon Sinek, they're basically saying the same thing. If you put a sign out there with your values, who you are, what you believe in, and you keep doing that consistently, at some point you will have people that will see these signs and say, you know what, we're alike. So maybe I should call you in for an interview. So you see how the branding can already do half of the work. And that's not even touching on the resume part yet. That's just how you put yourself out there to the market, how you even write your LinkedIn profile. I think right now just having a good profile will already get you a lot of traction without even touching on the resume. So, but this is not a video about LinkedIn. I can do that another time. Definitely also part of my job search method that I use, because it's also part of building your profile, but it's more technical on LinkedIn. But today more about now moving into how do you build your resume and your cover letter. So once you define who you are, what you're about, what your values are about, you also need to talk the same language. This is going also about putting your name out there and your values. So some of the wording, for example, and I've said that before, is very important. And the reason why is because depending on who you're targeting as an organization, there's very, very specific language used. And I use again the difference between the finance sector, for example, or for-profit sector and not-for-profit, which I've worked for both, and very different. Obviously, you can't just move from one to the other, which is something that's actually quite difficult in Geneva, where I am, because the language is different. The skills can be the same in my view, because if you're a good finance person in banking, you could be a great finance person for not-for-profit. However, to be seen and to be called for an interview, your resume needs to be very clear on the language. So for example, if I'm a recruiter and I've worked my entire life in not-for-profit, the only language I know is the words that I hear all day, meaning, funding and fundraising and constituents and finding resources and, meeting the objectives of the mission. And these are the words that I'm used to seeing and hearing about. So when I'm looking for employees or resources or whatever you want to call it, I'm definitely looking at those words on a resume. So if I have someone from banking, for example, that's applying and the person says all over the resume, well, I worked in corporate banking, I've grown clients, 10 times and, I'm able to build, huge income for my organization, and I've, developed this type of network, around my organization. This is not necessarily going to be an immediate, yes, I think you should be working for me, because it's a different language. So someone working, and it's not just HR, it's also whoever is going to do the resume, checking the resume. Most of the time, these people are living in different worlds. So you can assume that just by sending your resume out there to somebody, they will understand what you did before. So you need to make it clear to them and translate it into their language. So if I'm a banker and I've worked my entire life in banking and now I want to work for not-for-profit because I want to work for a mission and I want to have an impact and all those things, I will need to do quite some work on my profile so that people can understand why I'm applying. Otherwise, if I'm sending a resume saying I work for corporate banking and with all the wording that I just explained, people probably won't pick me up because they will think, well, why is this person even applying? So you see how there's this different gaps, between industries that people really need to take care of when they apply. It's not just a straight transition. People won't think, yeah, transferable skills, It's, I think I can see some of it because I've worked for different fields. And I say this on my profile in my About page, that I've worked for different industries. I've worked in banking, I've worked in cereal maker, I worked for consulting, for not-for-profit. So I'm able to make some links now between all these different organizations because I've experienced it, and it was something I wanted actually, so I'm quite happy about that. But most people out there don't have my profile. They haven't worked for 10, 15 different industries. They've worked maybe one or two, and even if they've changed companies, usually it's in the same fields. So they are bankers or they are, not-for-profit in different sectors. So they won't be able to catch, your specificity from your previous employers. So you need to cater to them. It's basically what I teach people. You need to cater to individuals and speak their language. So if someone is using, funding and mission and all these words, you need to translate your resume using these kinds of words. So it's actually making the transition towards how do you build your resume and your cover letter when you're looking for work. So the first thing you need to do once you define your branding and what you're good at and you're ready to cater to these organizations that you're targeting is to actually start writing a good resume. This is going to be your communication tool. This is going to be something that you send out to companies. So you need to invest time in it. You can't just, take something that, and trust me, I'm saying this, you probably think, well, it's common sense. I hear recruiters all the time, or I see on LinkedIn recruiters complain that they get resumes from way back and, punctuation problems and all those kinds of things. So really, I think what you need to do is actually think about, what do I want to put out there? What type of material? How is this catering to my organizations that I'm targeting? So I think I saw someone who tried to comment, but I don't see the comment. Just to let you know, it's not that I don't want to answer. I just don't see a comment on my live Q&A here. So maybe you need to put the comment right below the video if you're watching, right below the Q&A. So going straight on the topic of how do you build your resume? So the first thing you need to do is actually have a good title. So for me, this is mandatory. You need to have a very good title on your resume. You need to have all your details on top. So make sure, especially if you're an expat and you're new to Switzerland, this is going to be something you need to go beyond, which is the confidential part. I mean, here people like to work with people they know, which explains a little bit why people want to know so many details about you immediately, like your date of birth and where you live and all this stuff, is because they want to know who they're dealing with. So it's just the culture, I think, that's like this. People don't trust you immediately. They want to see where you're coming from, what are you about. This is why also the background check sometimes is quite in depth, because really people want to know who you are as an individual and they don't let you in easily. So this is the same thing whether you're looking for a job, you're joining a new community or what have you. It's not an immediate like, hey, great, welcome and this is it, you're part of it. You need to put in the work and effort to show that you're someone that really cares. And then people obviously will, take you in. So this is just a cultural side note I'm making so that you don't feel like what's wrong, It's just a process, that you need to go through. And it starts with the work permit. You can't just work here as you would in any other country. You need to go through the work permit application with your employer. So it takes a little bit of time, but if you're an EU person, usually it's something that you should be able to get over. So going back to the resume, so personal details on top, don't be afraid of that. It's part of the culture. You need to have everything showing. Make sure you have a recent photograph on. It sounds, again, very common sense, but a lot of people have horrible photos. Again, you want to make it as a marketing tool, so make sure that you have a photo on there that's quite nice, recent, professional one. Again, I've seen all kinds of photos when I was recruiting for companies. Make sure to invest a little bit in the quality of your material. A nice resume, well written, nice photograph that you did with a photographer. I think that makes the difference. This is, again, your image. I always tell people it's your image. What do you want people to remember when they see your resume, when they get your business card? If it's something sloppy, that's what people will remember. I met this sloppy person, or she sent me a sloppy resume. This is not really going to help your career or your positioning, as I call it. So invest in your overall materials. Do a professional photo, use nice paper if you're going to print the resume, even though now you tend to send it online more. And again, make sure that it's well written. So on the part of well written, not everyone is equal on that exercise. Some people are very good. They know how to write. They're very, very detailed. They know what type of wording to use. And for other people, and I'm thinking maybe more the scientific minds or people who are more, never really been used to writing, it could be a difficult exercise. And I've seen really, and again, it's not a question of intelligence or skill, because I've seen very, very skilled, intelligent people who cannot get a resume done. It's just not their cup of tea. They can't summarize well. There's mistakes in every sentence. They just can't do it. It's just complicated for them. And this is part of what I do, of course, in my career coaching, is I help people with their resume. And again, it's something that I need to do sometimes 2 or 3 times with an individual until they get it perfect. So what I would again encourage is that if you have a very, very difficult time getting a resume, professional resume put together, get some support. It's worth the investment, again, because when you're out there and you're sending your resume, this is what people will know about you. And if it's sloppy, they won't call you. That's the immediate result of the lack of, putting effort into something, is that you just won't get called. So it's a little bit of a pity, I find, not to take action on something you can take action on. So in other words, of course, the recruiter has the final say into making the decision of calling people, but there's things you can also do to increase the chances. So the first stages, which is to get a resume right, to send it properly and make sure that everything is perfect on it. This is something in your span of control. So if you do this part right, at least you maximize your chances. Whereas if you don't do it, then how would you know what's wrong? You won't know if it comes from the resume or if it's just that you're not the right person. But again, maximizing all the areas where you have a say into it and you can make an effort, then of course you multiply your chances of being called. This is actually linked to my video I did on Monday, where I talk about why recruiters don't call you back. And of course, there's context and resources that are involved, but also definitely the quality of the application. If you have a very good application as a recruiter, even if you can do anything with it because you don't have an opening, chances are, again, I'm not saying for sure, but chances are you will, put it somewhere, try to remember or make a quick call to the person to say, to keep them warm. You don't want to waste a good potential candidate because sometimes it's very difficult to find good people. So recruiters always want to find good people, especially in the local area for their clients. So if they have good people, they want to keep them, I would say, close by and motivated. So if you write a good application, you will get something. I know with my clients, when we go through the process of working on their application, their resume, their cover letter, they will get contacts. Now, it doesn't mean, obviously, and I want to be very clear on that, sometimes, again, it doesn't mean you will get the job immediately, but actually you're going in the right direction. You get a call, you get an interview. This is the beginning of a process where maybe you get a second interview, maybe you're not for this job, but you will be for another job, but something will happen, you will have motion. So if your resume and your cover letter are good, but meaning you've done also the preparation work, you know what you're about, you know what your values are, you know what you're going for. If you've done all this work plus a nice quality resume, then in my view, you will get contacted, whether it's by the recruiter for this particular job or for another job. But, good applications are actually not so easy to find. So this is why I'm spending a lot of energy also to help people build a good resume, because I know this is not the reality of the everyday life of a recruiter. I know that most applications, and again, I know because I've been there, I've sorted applications, I know most applications are not up for it. They're not at the right level of quality that would be expected by a professional company. Again, mistakes, typos, people are not clear on what they're looking for. So that's why what I'm telling you tonight is basically action you can take immediately to basically be the type of person that employers will want to call you. So once you've worked on your resume, you need to actually think about building a story. So once you have your header and your details and you know very much what you want to say on your resume, you don't want to look at a resume like you're just listing experiences, out there and you hope for the best. You want to actually tell a story. So you want to make sure that when I'm reading your resume, I understand where you're coming from. And this is hard. This is very hard to do because sometimes I spend a whole hour with my clients on the phone just on that one part, which is to tell a story. What do we say first? Why should I put forward that you did an internship 10 years ago? This is not going to help you. So basically it's like sorting what you want to put. It's like you have a cake to make and you have chocolate and flour and all kinds of things. And what do you want to put in to make a good cake? Well, it's the same thing with a resume. You have all these experiences, meaning internships, maybe you've done some short job somewhere that didn't work out too well, maybe 1 year or two somewhere, and they hurt your resume more than anything else, but they're there. It's part of the journey of having great experiences and not so great. And then you have maybe this experience where then you have to deal with what do I say with the referencing because it's not great. I mean, everyone has one of those resumes where they have bumps and they have things that they want to show, others they don't want to show as much. So really working through this to make you look at your best. So it's really taking all your experiences, again, it could be more for some people than others, and really shoveling all that in and just say, okay, what do we want to make out of it? What type of thing? So I'll give you a concrete example. For example, do you use the title of your job as something that you want to push forward, I call it, or do you want to push forward the company? That's a big question. What do you put as bold and, out there on your resume? So again, the answer to that is, what are you looking for? If you have a goal to work for a big multinational and you've worked for multinationals, I want to see that on your resume. I want to see those big names out there that you worked for, and I want to see that you have potential there with multinationals. However, if you're targeting more the title, for example, now you're trying to get to a manager job, and you want to really show that you have this capacity, then you want to make the titles a little bit more visible. So you see, depending on what's best also for the individual, if I'm someone, for example, who I've worked in very, very prestigious companies, let's say, but never in a very, very prestigious job. So I've been an assistant most of my life, let's imagine, in very big multinationals, very well-known multinationals. Well, definitely what's going to sell my resume is the name of the multinationals. It's not my title, because I've been an assistant, or I've been an intern, let's say, or those jobs where it's not something you can really say, wow, I can do all these great things for you. It's just that you still need to work on your profile and develop your skills. So there's tons of assistants out there, tons of interns. That's not what's going to sell you. What's going to sell you is that you work for a big name company that could bring a lot of value to your future employee, because you have some method. Maybe you've used some software there, or you were involved in big projects. That's what's going to sell your resume. So it's all thinking about it in terms of what brings you the most value. Is it your title, or is it the companies you work for? Is it the projects you've developed? And this is not the same for everybody. So you can't say, okay, this is the template, I'm just copying and pasting it. I do give templates in my online materials, but it's just a template. It's something that you can use as a base, but definitely you need to do a lot of work on it. And that's why you have to take templates a little bit, as a beginner process, but you need to do a lot more work if you want to build a very nice resume. So what I will look at in terms of HR is, okay, your resume is interesting for me because you work for the competitor, and I know that they work very well in this industry, and we want their people because they're very knowledgeable. They're just very good for us. So that's what's going to sell you. Or for example, I'm looking for someone who has management experience. So if you have manager on your resume, this is going to sell you the job. So you have to see, based on your target, what's going to get you the job. Most of the time, I tend to tell people that it's not you necessarily that will sell the resume, it's your companies. So I know when I started my career back when, I worked for very large companies, and I had very big names on my resume until I would say until recently, because most of my career I've worked for big names, and it was very educational. And that's why I did it as well, because they teach you how to work under pressure. They teach you how to, work with small budgets. Well, especially working in HR, you learn how to do a lot with less because you're a support function. So if you have big names, big consulting firms, for example, that's why a lot of graduates want to work for them, because they will teach you how to work. They will teach you the method. They will teach you how to be efficient, how to be good with clients. So this is something you want on your resume. However, in Switzerland, for example, it's more of a small business country. If you've been around enough time, you probably will know this by now, that there are some multinationals, but if you look at the market in general, there's a lot of small businesses, and they're quite successful. So you don't want to cut yourself off saying, I only want to work for the big names. You can work for smaller businesses and learn also a lot of things. So this is probably going to be adaptation for you, because if you've always worked in big cities where you have, Deloitte or Price Waterhouse, all these people, and you go to an area where there's only small businesses, you will have to adapt your resume to the local market so that you're attractive for the smaller businesses. And maybe your big names will help you because they want to get your experience. So all this is transitioning and helping companies understand the transition and understand how you can be helpful for them, even though they can't necessarily understand your profile immediately. I don't see any questions. I wonder if it's normal, because usually I see questions underneath. So if for whatever reason it's a technical issue that I don't see questions, I will answer them online later. I will go online and actually type in my answers by hand and put them on Facebook. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I keep talking about the resume process. So once you have so you understand you work for big companies or you work for smaller companies, you have to understand what's the most effective based on your target, on what you're looking for. But again, what I'm saying tonight is probably going to sound like a lot of work, and definitely if you want to do it, methodically and have the most return on investment of your time, it's something that you need to do with a lot of energy. You need to put a lot of energy into it. Working on your resume, also working on the cover letter, which I can talk about for a little while. So once you have your resume that's actually finished, so you're happy with it, you like the way it looks, I would recommend to keep it short, because I've seen too many resumes in my career that are too long. And in general, again, I don't want to make it a general answer, but in general, resumes are too long. Recruiters don't have time to read them. They tend to read very quickly. So if you have 5-6 pages, I know in not-for-profit, for example, when I dealt with this sector, I used to get 10-20 pages resume, and it's just not possible. I mean, you can't go through 20 pages. So again, I know some of you have wide experiences, you've written articles, you've done 20 internships. A lot of people now have multiple experiences, and it's hard to make it into a 2-page resume. It's like, what do I keep? What do I highlight? It's work. It's a lot of work. But that's why there's people like me, I guess, out there now, because it's becoming really a job to look for a job. I mean, really, because between recruiters that are getting a little bit, actually a lot more demanding in terms of quality, in terms of matching the values, in terms of, what you've done with your resume. Now people expect you to have the information right. So I remember, again, when I was looking for a job, I would say up until 2000, it was a little bit more accepted that you didn't have everything perfect, that, your resume looked okay, but I don't remember having any type of guidelines where it had to be a certain way, or, it wasn't so hard, I think. It was just, you introduce yourself, you send your resume to the job agencies, and usually you would get called. So it was more of a, I would say, low-key type of process. But now it's becoming where you almost need like a whole series of coaches and support and education just to get it right in terms of career, because it's becoming extremely demanding, I think, out there. Companies want to hire the best. That's just the reality of it. Jobs are becoming also a lot more complicated than they used to be. I think in terms of skill set, now everyone is expected to understand the digital world and how to work different tools. So I would say the level of expectation has gone so high that now people want to stay in the employed market or want to be marketable. They need to up their game as well. So it's not, again, like you can just flip through and say, okay, I'm just sending a resume and hope to get called, and taking a low-key approach. I mean, if you want to be out there amongst the employees or the staff that people are looking for, I'm using different words again. Staff is more of a UN world language. Employees or things like that, it's more of a private sector, even though now there's different names for it as well. So you see how now you really have to up your game to be selected. So if you're especially on the Swiss market, so if you're in Switzerland and you're looking for work, especially if you're new, you don't have a huge network, I mean, basically you need to be very good. You need to, it's almost like you need to fill this huge gap between you and the other people, because the other people will have built their network, know people, be introduced to companies, whereas you're just starting from scratch. So you need to build your network, you need to build your resume. I mean, you have to do everything from scratch. So the gap will be very intense. So it's what is the best way to fill the gap with as little pain as possible, basically. So I will take advantage of doing this webinar tonight to remind you of what I do. So I have my online program, career planning program. It's available on my website. I'm offering a nice agenda with beautiful Swiss pictures for people who sign up before the end of the month. So it's definitely something where you can track your progress, where you can actually work on your job search and keep track of who you're meeting and how you're progressing. And on my online program, basically what it includes is some time with me as a coach online or in person, depending on what option you choose. You have a bunch of material that's all education online. So you have some tutorials where you learn how to go about your job search. You have some materials to download. So for example, you will find websites that you might not know about in Switzerland to find jobs. You will have contacts also included of people that will give you feedback. or help you, with your job search that are part of the project. So basically, all that together makes you a more equipped person to move forward in your career. So as opposed to being on your own, trying to figure it out and spinning your wheels maybe for weeks or months, you get access to a program that really takes you step by step on this whole thing so that you can be more efficient basically, and you can go faster. And again, the way I equate it is that time is money. So if you're not working, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 months, you calculate the amount of salary you're losing every month. You can only see how much money you're losing in 6 months. So that's how I look at it in terms of investment for the program and the loss of salary potential that you're not getting while you're not working. So it's like cost of the program of 500 Swiss francs online, and job loss every month, maybe it's about, 4, 5, 6,000 Swiss francs would be the average salary in Switzerland that you're losing by not, I would say, accelerating your search. So that's one way to look at it, that I think is not something that has no importance. I think it's for everybody. You need to find a way to sustain yourself and do it the efficient way. So definitely I would recommend that you check my online program. I will put the link down below. Again, you get this free nice little agenda with beautiful Swiss pictures to inspire you and keep up with your job search. So that's a side note on how I can help you accelerate this whole process. So in terms of going back to resume building, so once you have your resume that's finished, completed, and you're happy with it, then you need to build a cover letter, because this goes hand in hand. When people ask me, well, do I still need to use a cover letter? The answer is yes. For now, you still need to use it. Maybe at some point, and now I know it's changing, you have a lot of websites now where you can do even videos, and that's how people will recruit you, via video. So there's new methods that are coming and popping, and of course now a lot of recruitment is going up on social media. So make sure that you're connected. Again, this is a separate topic I won't cover tonight, but using social media to get a job is huge now. So this is how people find their future employer. So going back to the cover letter, this is still used, even though it could be a little bit old for some of you, thinking, why do we still need to do cover letters? They have their value. And the reason why they have value, and I've talked about this with HR people in my last forum I was in 6 months ago, we were exchanging and talking about cover letters. Most of the HR professionals that were there really and I'm talking about in Switzerland again, they really enjoyed reading cover letters. And I was a bit surprised. I wanted to ask them, so why do you like cover letters so much? And some of the replies that I received from them was, well, you can see a person in the cover letter, are they, again, spelling right? What do they say in there? Are they showing they're motivated? And it's also a sign that you're putting effort. You wrote a whole cover letter. You took the time to actually think about what the company wants and stuff. So more generally, I think a lot of HR people enjoy reading good cover letters. It will make the difference, again, between someone who sends a very bad or no cover letters and someone who sends a good cover letter. It will make a difference. Again, it doesn't mean that's it, you will be selected, but it's a good plus. So if you're writing your application, you spend the time on your resume, you're happy with it, make sure you don't not do a cover letter, or you pass that, because you would miss a chance to maybe be selected because you have a very good cover letter. So in the cover letter, you have 3 different sections that you need to cover. So the first one is really about introducing why you want to work for this company. And most people get this wrong. Most people start with I do this, I do that, I have this experience. Again, I've said this before, but I'm your future employer. I don't care what you've done before. I want to know what you can do for me. It's the same as normal human interaction. You have to think about, and this is something I learned through my experience, is learning basically what's in it for people. So when I communicate with individuals, I always think, what do they need? Or, what's in it for them? So I try not to think about why I want something. And this has happened to me in my career, where I wanted a manager to return a report to me or to give me some information. In HR, you're always looking for people to send you back something. This is the story of my life, where I'm always asking for things, to managers that don't have time to do them, writing reports or giving me evaluations and things like that. So what I learned is to always think about, why is that helpful for the person? So think about helping them with their issues, and therefore they're more willing to help you. It's a normal human thing. If someone does something for you, you're more inclined, I would say normally, not for everybody, you have some takers that never give, but more generally, if you do something for somebody, they will do something for you. So when you apply for a job and the first thing people see about you is, I did this and I'm great and I can do, it's not very encouraging. Whereas if you go on the website and you say, I've seen that you're very good with this and you've developed that, and it starts like that, you're already praising the person, praising the company, because obviously you don't know the person who's reading. But doing a little praise about what the company does is always helpful, because first it will show that you actually care about what the company does. You'd be surprised how many people apply for jobs, they don't know really what the company does, because they're just looking and they're just sending applications, a little bit blindly. So really showing that you know what the company does, what type of work they're involved in, and again, you've really spent the time to actually look at what's actually out there in the market about them. So maybe I'm always very surprised. Sometimes I talk to people and they say they're applying for a job, and I look at the name of the company and I say, did you know this company has actually merged? And people look at me very strangely, like, what do you mean? Well, you type on Google the name of the company, the second line is going to talk about the merger. You can't possibly, and again, I'm saying this for those of you especially who are professionals, you can't be taken seriously if you go into an interview and, for a professional job, which most of you are, and not know that there was a big merger that just happened. You're not going to be taken seriously. So this is the first thing, is actually to Google the name of the company and see if there's news coming up, big mergers, or, are they laying off people? Again, same thing I just learned recently about a company. So you can't, go in there and not know those kinds of things, or even be aware of them at the time when you write the cover letter. So, well, first of all, it will also save your time. Imagine people see online that a company is going through a merger. Chances are they're not going to recruit, so you don't need to waste a lot of time applying. But also, even if they are recruiting, first, this is something you want to know, because it's also putting yourself in a situation where you think, do I have a future there? Am I going to get laid off after 6 months? You want to know also if it's a true job. Sometimes companies, they will post jobs or placement agencies. Again, I don't want to say that it's a proper way to recruit, but I know it's a practice, and it happens where companies post jobs that are non-existent, and it's done for branding reason, it's done to grasp resumes or what have you. I've never done this in my practice when I was recruiting. I don't know what I would have said. If my boss said, let's do a fake ad, I probably would have been very uncomfortable and probably would have refused to do it, knowing my values. But this is something that happens out there. You are dealing with companies that are putting fake jobs out there just to get traction, to get resumes. So you want to understand a little bit more about what the company is going through, because maybe it's not even worth your time to invest in writing the cover letter. So again, do some research on the company. Make sure that they are actually needing staff or employees or whatever, again, that they are growing, that they are investing in their employees. This is also something that personally I would want to know about. Are they actually investing in their people, or they just have complete turnaround every 6 months? So you want to do all these things so that you can write a good cover letter. You show in the first paragraph you understand what you're dealing with. The second paragraph is about you. So why should you apply for this job? So that's when you can remind them about your skills, maybe some things you've done for employers before. But again, don't insist too much on the past, because now things are moving so quickly in today's market that a project you dealt with 5 years ago is not an accomplishment anymore. Maybe the technology you use doesn't even exist. And this is what we're going to see more and more. I remember the time when something I did, maybe 5 years later, it was still an achievement because people still understood what it meant. But now we get to a point where every month it's a new technology, a new way of doing things. So, be careful when you say, that is this big accomplishment. Maybe now there's an app that does it automatically and it's going to have no value whatsoever. So really step forward and think, what is value for an employer? What can I bring to the table that's not obsolete? So definitely not a project you did 10 years ago. That's actually something that can be used in this particular field or team or what have you. And again, try to summarize in a few words what you can do for this company so that they understand quickly whether you'd be good for this job or you'd be good for another job. Make their life easy by catering to them in terms of what you want and whether it matches with what they want quickly. So that's the second paragraph for me. And the closing paragraph, I call it the closing paragraph or last paragraph. It should really be an invitation to pursue the discussion. But again, it's an invitation to continue discussion. It's not putting yourself down as, please contact me, or please, I'm so available, because otherwise, you won't sound like someone who's high value. Again, the value of something is basically based on how much people need it and want it. So again, you can use that for anything, whether it's money. Actually, now they talk about Bitcoins, everyone wants them, so they have a high value. I'm sure if you have some old, money that's not even used now anymore, it has no value. So that's what I mean. How much value, and this term is a little bit difficult for people to understand. When you're an employee usually, or you work as a salaried person, you don't really work on this because you're used to maybe being in a job and being paid a salary every month. Once you start your own business, the way I did it, for example, you're used to having to show all the time, that you're bringing something to the table. So it's actually an exercise that takes it a little bit further. But you also need to do that now as a salaried person. You need to bring value. So it's almost like you're an entrepreneur within a company. So it's like an intrapreneur. So you can't just sit now and say, I have these skills, I should be hired and I'm great. You need to show your employer why they should invest in you, what's so different about you, and what makes you such a great employee that it's not possible for me not to have you on my team, because you'd be bringing all these different things that I really need. But you can't bring all these things that an employer needs if you don't take the time to understand what the employer needs and to have worked a little bit through the motion of, observing a little bit the recruitments and the trends and all that to see what this particular field needs. So, what does someone in accounting needs nowadays, or what does someone in marketing needs? So you'd be surprised. This is not something that people do. They tend to just apply and pray and hope for the best. This is not how you sell yourself in 2017. So this is my work, my mission. This is something that I really put a lot of effort in, is really gearing people or setting people up for the future of jobs, for the future skills that will be needed tomorrow. And I can say from what I observed in LinkedIn, because I do spend a lot of time on this particular tool, I think there's a gap between where people are and where they need to be. So I want to push, I would say, people to develop their skills. That's why I have developed your skills and grow your potential as my tagline, because I do think people need to up their game if they want to stay competitive, if they want to be hired by the biggest and best organizations and get the biggest salaries. So people need to up their game. They need to be out there, and prepared and understand what they're doing, and, be very good during the interview. So all these things for me should be common. Like the first part of it, which is to research the company, signing a resume that's good, going through the interview, for me, that should be common. That should be complete common sense and taken for granted in terms of things that you should do well and be prepared for. Now, where you can put more energy is really about selling yourself during the interview, which is harder, I would say. So really do the basics right. This is something you can learn quickly. And then really put all your effort in, how do I sell myself once I have the interview? Because you probably won't get a second interview. It's almost like now when you have an interview, you need to be the best. You need to go out there saying, I want to get the second interview. Anyway, that's a different topic, the interview. But in my view, if I summarize everything I said today, and even in my previous videos, I would summarize in one word: it's sales. Whether you're talking about selling yourself, selling your resume, going to an interview. It's all about how you come across, what people remember about you, following up. It's really selling yourself. So if you're someone who's a bit hesitant about it, you're not quite comfortable, you have maybe you're new to the country. I know for a lot of expats, for example, there's this thing about feeling that they're not out there yet. They need a little bit more preparation. I think all these things are valid, but it's almost like a hump that you need to go through or go above, I would say, so that you can really be out there and getting the job that you want and need. So again, it's preparation and it's selling yourself. So these are the two words that will help you get the job and move forward on your career project. So I hope I didn't miss the questions tonight, because usually I get some questions about different topics. Again, I'd be happy to come back and reply a little bit later. So feel free to ask your question, even if you think about it later today or even tomorrow. Still be answering, and this will go also on LinkedIn and YouTube so that people can get the information. So with that said, thank you for those of you who watched this tonight, who listened. I want also to get your feedback and topics that you want me to cover. So if there's topics that you're really, really interested in, you want to understand maybe some specifics about your market or where you are, feel free to comment below and say, I want to know more about this stuff. And I'll make sure to cover it as a topic, because I have everything listed, but again, always open to add new things or cover new material. So have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.